Now, I would just like to make the following remarks quickly. I have two series of important comments to make. The first series is in terms of the law, and the second in terms of practice of reality and facts. So the first level, the law. First of all, I would like to ask the delegation about the idea of submitting the law to religious rules. Is that compatible with the idea of freedom of belief and religion? The question that I'm asking is to know if the role of a constitution is of defining who is a Muslim and who is not. And that in the Constitution of Pakistan, there are definitions of what is Islam and what is not Islam, and so who is or not Muslim. The second comment is that there is an Article 20 in the Constitution which recognizes the freedom of conscience. But some constitutional provisions don't follow the same line. In particular, Article 2A, 263A and B. In accordance with the Second Amendment of the Constitution, the Ahmadis are not considered as Muslims. And this Second Amendment is aimed particularly at the Ahmadis. And my question is the following. Does that not constitute interference of the state in freedom of belief? Now I'm going to come back to the law on blasphemy. In the Pakistani Criminal Code, there are provisions which sanction attacks on religion and the sacred. For example, Section 295B and 295C. They include articles concerning blasphemy, that is profanity or profane treatment of the Quran, insults to the Prophet, and they can lead to imprisonment and also capital punishment. Section 298 sanctions attacks on religious sentiments, religious feelings. Section 298A penalizes insults or attacks to the spouses or the family of the Prophet, and Section 298B and C target in particular the Ahmadiyya, the Qadiani and other groups, and thus penalizes their request to be considered as Muslims. So in accordance with these articles, 298B and C of the Criminal Code, they may not call themselves Muslims, although this community says it is Muslim. On this whole series of laws on blasphemy, the Special Rapporteur on the Independence of Judges and Lawyers, following a visit to Pakistan in 2012, estimated, and I'm going to quote the Special Rapporteur, these laws serve particular interests of extremist groups. They are not just contrary to the Constitution of Pakistan, but also to the standards of international human rights law, in particular those related to non-discrimination and freedom of expression and opinion. End of quotation. And the Special Rapporteur recommended to Pakistan that they abrogate or amend the blasphemy laws in order to align themselves with the obligations of Pakistan under human rights law. So at the level of the law and the constitution above all and the criminal code of Pakistan, there are problems which can affect human rights and in particular the freedom of belief and religion, Article 18 of the Covenant. Now, in practice, the social political climate in general and social pressure are a true source of discrimination, in particular on the situation of the Ahmadi community. So by way of example, just a single example, on the 13th of April 2014, a student, Ahmadi Mashal Khan, was lynched at the University Abdul Wali Khan in Mardan. And the problem that arises is that within the social context, there is a certain aggression towards the Ahmadi community, but not just to that community. Certain other religious minorities, such as Christians or the Hazara, who are Shiite, are often subject to attacks in society on their temples, their mosques, and that thus it is that an Ahmadi mosque is currently closed. Why is that? What is the reaction of the delegation to this climate which is hostile towards religious minorities in Pakistan, and what is the government doing to overcome these aggressive phenomena towards religious minorities? Thank you.
With respect to the Pakistan Electronic Media Regulatory Authority, we understand that the authority has a code of conduct that prohibits, among other things, criticism of the armed forces and any anti-national or anti-state attitudes against basic cultural values, morality, and good manners. Media NGOs report that the authority has suspended several media channels for varying durations in recent years, amounting to more than 20 such bans in the past 4 years. And that these suspensions include suspension of 4 programs relating to Ahmadis. My questions regarding the authority are, does the chairman of the authority have the authority to immediately shut down a media outlet? And what procedural safeguards and oversight do you have in place to ensure that the authority does not exercise its powers inconsistent with the principle of the right to freedom of expression and access to information?
In addition to these efforts with regard to participation in elections and elected bodies, the question of adequate participation in public affairs also includes executive and administrative bodies, including also law enforcement and the judiciary. The committee has received information that women in the police services represent less than 1%, and that they are seriously underrepresented in the judiciary, especially in higher courts, where only 7 out of 130 judges in the Supreme Court and provincial higher courts combined are women. Could you please comment and indicate any positive measures taken or planned in order to address this inadequate representation? The committee has also noted the information regarding the quotas and reserved seats for minorities in elected bodies at different levels, and appreciates also the specific information provided by the state party regarding the set quotas. At the same time, the committee notes that the state party reports in its reply to questions on the list of issues concerning illiteracy, language barriers, poverty, and impediments to freedom of movement that there are no barriers on political participation, while ensuring the right to effective participation of minorities also entails ensuring that such participation can take place on an equal footing with other members of society, and thus often implies adopting special measures, such as providing election-related information in minority languages, including in areas of mixed populations. According to reports available to the committee, we have also noted that there was no minority representative on the Electoral Reform Commission, which last year was elaborating the proposed changes, including with regard to enhancing women's participation. Could the distinguished delegation please inform us whether there are any other special measures than the reserved seats taken with regard to minority participation? In terms of participation in the executive and civil service, we also take note of the 5% quota for minorities for jobs in the federal services that was mentioned earlier today. Are there mechanisms in place to monitor such representation? And could you please provide specific data on participation, including also in law enforcement and the judiciary? Several issues of concern regarding minority participation have been brought to the attention of this committee. CERD, also in the concluding observations in October 2016, expressed concern over the persistently narrow interpretation of the concept of minorities exclusively consisting of religious minorities and the absence of disaggregated data. Is data collected that would permit assessing the effectiveness of participation of ethnic and religious minorities in public affairs, including in elections, in elected bodies, in executive bodies, as well including the law enforcement and judiciary? Finally, the list of issues included requests for information on the reasons for the reported requirement that Ahmadis register on a separate voting list, since their names had been removed from the electoral list by the Election Commission in the 2013 elections. But since this issue was not yet addressed by the state party, could the distinguished delegation please comment this situation? What measures are put in place to ensure respect for the right to effective participation in elections by Ahmadis? Thank you very much.
Mr. Excellency, the floor is yours to give some answers to the questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to give the floor to Ambassador, and he will respond.
Thank you, sir. We've had many more questions again, and we welcome the observations and the comments of the esteemed members of the committee. Now, I would just come back to the question of Ahmadis. Regarding the Ahmadiyas, after the Second Amendment, Article 260, brackets 3 of 1974, in the Constitution of Pakistan, 1973, the Ahmadiyya community has been declared as a minority. The Ahmadiyas have, under Article 20 of the Constitution, all rights as citizens of Pakistan, including to profess their religious beliefs without discrimination. 13 publications, including a daily, weeklies, fortnightlies, and monthly bulletins, magazines, and newspapers, are brought out by the Ahmadi community. Now, turning to the issue of Mashal Khan, firstly, as far as we know, the delegation is Mashal Khan was not an Ahmadi, but that does not change the seriousness of this crime. The government has taken serious notice of the murder of the young student, and I would like to update the committee on the latest situation.